All right, joining me now, House Republican Whip Steve Scalise. Steve Scalise, welcome back to the show, as always, sir. Steve, I guess it was on a radio show last Friday. This Congressman Mark Pocan of Wisconsin bashes the Republican Party for worshiping on the altar of free market capitalism. I think it was on a radio show. And then he blathers on, and I want you to listen to this, please. Here it comes.
Ultimately, we're watching the wealthy get way too wealthy. Corporations aren't paying any of their fair share. Until we decide that actually people through a democracy make the decisions rather than somehow the free market is the altar that we're worshiping on, that's going to be the problem that we're going to face. You can't have a nation based on grift and have it sustainable.
Yeah, so Steve Scalise, this is wonderful. He's bashing free market capitalism and so forth. And yet, the Biden socialist agenda has taken us from a boom to a bust, taken parental rights away, opened the borders, and all these things that have gone wrong. I don't know what this guy's talking about. And your commitment to America is trying to fix it and reverse the things that he seems to love.
Yeah, well, and first of all, Larry, it's great to be back with you. But wow, congratulations on that Buckley Award, because, look, both Presidents Reagan and President Trump have benefited from your steady hand and guidance in the White House during incredible years for freedom. And I don't know what altar he worships at. If he's going to trash people who worship at the altar of free market capitalism, I worship at the altar of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ and God. But it's a God that believes in freedom. And it's a God who helped give us our laws and our freedoms in America. Our founding fathers didn't talk about government giving us anything. It was coming down. Our powers came to us from God. And maybe the left has really threatened the altar of government. Big government socialism has failed every time it's been tried, and it sure doesn't work in this country. Look at the disastrous results. You go from great periods of freedom when you were in the White House to where everybody, by the way, had opportunity who wanted it. If you want to seek out the American dream, that's what you and I fight for every single day, no matter what your background is, your walk of life, your race, your creed. Today, they want to pick apart America based on race. They want to segment us and divide us based on anything they can find. That's not what our founding fathers believed in. And frankly, it's not what most Americans believe in. Most Americans yearn for freedom, and people all around the world want America to stand for that great freedom. And that's what we're fighting for. And as you can see, there are people on the other side in Washington, on the far left, who think it's some joke to mock freedom. But most Americans want to continue to yearn and fight for freedom.
I mean, you know, it's just so interesting. He can bash free markets as much as he wants, but it's not an easy thing to do what their state planning and regulatory planning and so forth has done. They basically took a non-inflationary boom and in over a year turned it into a stagflationary bust. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, it seems to me. If I were he, and by the way, the polls are now showing, I think, that the conservative cavalry is coming on strong and finishing strong. I wouldn't be bragging the way he's bragging about that.
That's right, Larry. And look, this is why we're going to win in so many places across America on November 8th, because people are fed up with the big government socialist failure that is the Biden administration, but they're also seeing it in a lot of individual states. We're going to flip a lot of seats in New York. In California, we can win more seats. In Pennsylvania. And, of course, in the states that embraced freedom, like Texas and Florida, we're going to see even more Republicans get elected there. And it's people of all walks of life that we're getting that are phenomenal candidates, people with military backgrounds, business backgrounds, people that care about freedom, not people that worship at the altar of government. Look at where that's gotten us: record inflation, high interest rates where you can't even afford your shot at the American dream, paying people not to work, all the devastation that's come from their spending, open borders, fentanyl deaths. This is not the new norm. Crime in our streets because they defunded the police. People are fed up with all of that. I think you're going to see people go to the polls on November 8th to take their country back and go and re-embrace that dream of freedom that Ronald Reagan talked about with that shiny city on the hill. It's still there. It's flickering a little bit right now, but every generation, as Reagan said, it's one generation from extinction. We are not going to let it go extinct, Larry. We're going to fight for it, and we're going to win in November.
You know, one of the interesting parts of Biden's central planning and big government socialism, this whole business about canceling student loans And now there's a revolt. This may be one of the hottest issues as we close towards the election. People are furious at canceling the student loans, where the middle class has to pay for a handful of upper class people. Now, the Bidens are pulling back on this. You may have seen this after these lawsuits from states who are being injured. They're losing revenues. They're losing interest on some of the private loans. You know, you can run, but you can't hide. I still think they're going to have to defend this, and student loans are a hot issue coming into November.
Yeah, Biden still wants to do this, but people are revolting. And, you know, it's not a partisan. There are Democrats that are asking this question. And Larry, I raised this question of fairness. They like talking about equity. I like talking about fairness. Is it fair that if you went to college and maybe your college took a lot of money and charged you way too much and didn't give you an education, they were teaching you critical race theory and hatred of America, and you got out and you couldn't get a job, you can't repay your loan? Is it fair that somebody else repays your loan? And who is it that should repay your loan if it's not you? You signed the document, and yet you want some single mom who's working 2 jobs at the diner to pay your loan? That's not fair. And I think most people get that. And so Biden still wants to do it because he's just trying to appease any little segment that he can to try to create more voters for November. They never want to look past the next election. They never want to stop dividing the country. People are fed up with it. They sure didn't like his divisive speech in front of Independence Hall, where he's yelling at people, calling half of America fascist. Enough of this. Let's get back to just embracing the American dream, respecting our differences like William Buckley did, but ultimately standing up for those basic values, the American values that make our country great, not only here in America, but we're the envy of the world. Anyone who seeks freedom anywhere in the world looks at the American dream, you know, not the Moscow dream. There's no dream anywhere else except here in America, but it's under attack right here at home. We've got to fight to defend it again this November 8th.
You know, I never understood, Steve Scalise, I never understood the justification for canceling all these student loans was a national emergency law passed years ago that had nothing to do with student loans. But the emergency now is based on COVID, but President Biden says, I don't know, a week or 2 ago, that COVID is over. The pandemic is over. So if the pandemic is over, the emergency is over. So if the emergency is over, then what's the justification for canceling student loans? I mean, I just don't get any of this stuff.
Right. Neither does he, it seems like, you know, and that was the premises of his canceling of the loan. He doesn't have the legal authority to do it. I think he's going to lose those lawsuits. But it's just the idea that he wants to go out there and give people false hope and tell them, hey, don't worry, you know, whatever you signed up for, you don't have to pay it back. Again, somebody else is going to pay back your loan. If you got a bad education, maybe your college should be the one that pays back the loan. They took your money. They're the ones that maybe made you go into $250,000 in debt and give you a degree that's worthless. They're the institution maybe that you should be going to ask for repayment, not the taxpayer, not the single mom who's working 2 jobs. And so, again, if the pandemic's over, like he said on 60 Minutes, it was amazing how the next day the White House was scrambling to say, no, he didn't really say that. Well, we watched it. He did say that. And it is over. It's like everybody's getting back to their normal lives. I mean, if a handful of crazy left-wing nuts want to drive in their car by themselves with 3 masks on, that's their business. And this is America. You can do that. Just don't make me do that. Don't try to make me change my lifestyle or anyone else. People want to live their lives. They want to yearn for freedom. And whether they wanted to go to a school board meeting and say, wait, I saw during COVID what you're doing to my kid. I want to see the curriculum, and they're called a domestic terrorist by the Biden administration. People are fed up with all of that. They want to get back to normalcy.
You know, one last thing. Here we are in the remaining weeks of this midterm election, and still the Bidens have done nothing to close the border. And the illegal immigration is still coming on strong. In fact, there's a recent poll. We had a full screen on the poll. Maybe we can put it up again. The country is so opposed to this illegal immigration. And I want to add to that. Well, here are some of the numbers. Likely voters, legal immigration, 78%. Illegal immigration, bad for America, 75%. So people want legals, but they do not want illegals. And I want to add to that the fentanyl scourge. It's nothing but poison, killing Americans of all ages, including our young people. Even now, on the eve of this election, they still have done nothing, Steve Scalise.
Yeah, and by the way, Larry, voters understand the difference between legal and illegal immigration. Our country was founded upon people coming to this country legally. We just elected a great new member of Congress, Myra Flores, first Mexican-born person to be elected to Congress who's a female. She's a Republican. She ran on legal immigration and got elected overwhelmingly in a heavy Hispanic district because people who came here legally respect that rule of law and are insulted by the idea that millions of people can just jump the line and come across into our country, bypassing all kind of laws. And now we see the drug cartels bringing, as you mentioned, fentanyl that has killed over 100,000 young people just last year, and maybe another 100,000+ people this year. It needs to stop. And you got Biden and Kamala saying the border's secure. It's an insult to the American people who know it's out of control. They only care about it when 50 people show up in Martha's Vineyard. What about the 3 million who have shown up across the Rio Grande, in parts of California, in New Mexico? Let's get back to rule of law. Let's actually get back to the legal parts of immigration, make that work, secure the border. That's something we're fighting for in this November election.
All right. Well, good luck with the commitment on America, and good luck up on the campaign trail, Steve Scalise. Thanks very much.